What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What will other people say? Have you ever asked yourself these type of questions in response to the nudge, the pull to do something different, to step out, to pivot in your life, to realize a level of potential that is new for you? When we step into new things, there's something that rises up in us. It's our protection mechanism to keep us from creating change that could be dangerous. We're programmed this way, except we have to be willing to notice when things are actually dangerous and there's a for real threat, like walking down a dark alley, versus you just being nervous and apprehensive about what could happen if you pivot, if you create this change in your life. This video is part 2 in our mini series, Your Thoughts Are Keeping You Stuck. So today we're going to talk about the thoughts that are keeping you stuck from pivoting, from creating change, from going after your purpose, especially those nudges from God that are leading you into the next phase. And yet you want to pull back and you want to start to question if you're really capable. I want to give you a couple of great insights from my own pivoting experience that could benefit you as you're making your pivot in your 40s to live out your best life. Because, friend, what we don't want to happen is that you get caught in a negative loop, a loop of negative thinking. And the way that works is one thought feeds into the next thought, and then you get sucked into that. You start believing that, and it becomes just this endless cycle of looping negative thoughts. And those negative thoughts will keep you from taking action. Those negative thoughts will hold you back, and you won't achieve what it is that you have the nudge, the mission to do. Reason I want to point out the negative loop cycle is because so often people, and maybe even you, blame things on others or blame things on their circumstances. And yes, there is some truth in each of those elements because we can't control what other people are going to do or say. We can't control what's happening in the whole world, but we can control our reaction, our response to those things. And so the circumstances that are happening to you can be controlled how? They can be controlled by how you think. And so I want to give you a scripture to inspire our conversation today on how we can take control of our thoughts. And scripture even more powerfully uses the word take it captive. In 2 Corinthians 10:5, it says, we take captive, like I'm like, reach in, grab it. We take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And so how can we take our thoughts and instead of letting them run on a negative loop, instead of them running around and creating doubt and frustration and fear that is going to stop us from being in action, how can we take them captive and submit them to the direction that Christ has for our lives? Friend, that is the ultimate challenge. Putting this into application, what does this mean for you? First of all, that means that every thought that you're having, you don't have to just accept. Realize that if you can take a thought captive, that means you can have control over the thinking. The thoughts, you can reshuffle them, you can delete them and say goodbye, you can hold on to them, possess them, and make them your best friend. However, you get to decide how you are going to think. So let that sink in first. This is why I stress so much the importance of us understanding that we are not our thoughts. This is huge. And I've worked with my kids even at the basic level because I didn't understand this until much later in life. And maybe this is even going to be the first time you're realizing this. So let me say this nice and strong and clear because I need you to get this. You are not your thoughts. And you might be thinking, but Stefanie, they're coming from my head. Yes. But there are thoughts that are going to pop in and you're going to go, where did that even just come from? Why am I thinking this? This is not who I am. And so we get to decide which thoughts we're going to sit with, what thoughts we're going to dwell with, what thoughts we're going to allow to become a part of us. And what you want to do is just to start to begin to pay attention to your thoughts, to how you are thinking. And if you hear a thought and it doesn't serve you, that means it's not in your best interest. It's not one of these thoughts that is submitted to Christ, that is falling in alignment with Scripture and what we know we need to be doing in our lives as Christians, then we want to find those thoughts and we want to say, no, thank you. And just as simply as that, acknowledge they exist and say, no, thank you. We don't want them. Pray over them. For those that are more stubborn, that you're asking God to help you to release those thoughts and make them go away. It doesn't matter if these are thoughts that you're having wide awake in the middle of the day. These are thoughts you're having with your daydreaming, and all of a sudden you just catch yourself and you go, whoa, where have I been? I was just in a whole different world, just train of thoughts. This is your like idle time when you're just driving or you're doing something, and you're like, whoa, I've been replaying that episode, that conversation I had with so-and-so, and dramatize and make it even bigger. Have you done that? I've done that so many times. I'm like, why am I reliving this? This is creating more heartache and more pain for me by continuing to think this over and rehash, and why I should have said this and I should have said that. Those are the kind of thoughts where I'm saying it just takes over, and it doesn't have to become who you are. It doesn't have to be a part of your identity. On the other hand, we're all dreaming to some degree in our sleep. And so if you're aware of your dreams, and I'm a very active dreamer, I'm very aware of a lot of my dreams that I have, I would wake up and I would be like, whoa, what did I just do? And I have had for example, a sinful dream, a lustful dream. And I'm like, where did this even come from? And I don't want to be thinking these thoughts. And I would be like, I'm just a really bad person. And I had to stop and realize this is coming out of my subconscious, and I need to examine maybe the root of that. What has triggered this? But then I also needed to examine and say, release the judgment, release the pressure. I prayed in the daytime about what I had dreamt in the nighttime. And I asked God for help with that, because I was putting a lot of guilt and a lot of pressure on myself. I was like, this is nothing I would do in my waking hours, but I don't know where these thoughts have come from, and I want them out of my life. Why are they here? I don't want to think these things. And I acknowledge that. So I acknowledge the thought. I accepted it. It had come. It had been a part of who I was, but it wasn't who I was. Do you get what I'm saying? And I prayed over that to release it, and that I didn't want to get caught in the sin and thinking about this in my daytime hours, and being present with this type of thought. So these are just a couple examples. So one, I gave you the example of how I would be caught in thinking negative things about another person and trying to have a conversation, do-over, so to speak, and what sarcastic comment could I have to come back to attack them with? Those were not beneficial thoughts. I've also had evil thoughts and dark thoughts about people, and I get really angry. I'm like, whoa, where did this just creep in? That's not a part of who I want to be. I don't want to own and attach to that. And so I release those as well. And then I had the lustful thoughts in my sleep, and I was like, what? I don't want to have this. So I'm being honest and being vulnerable with you and sharing that you do not have to become what you're thinking. You can have thoughts. They can happen when you're awake and when you're asleep, in your dream state, in your idle state, or when you're even fully alert. But you can take them captive. You can bring your thoughts under submission to Christ. So we need to, one, know what it is that Christ wants us thinking about, so we know how to funnel our thoughts in that direction. And we know where we want to be going. What is the purpose of our life? What pathway are we choosing for ourselves? What goals do we have in place? So that we know when we are caught in fear of taking that next step. But how do we know what that next step is? How do we know what we are called to do unless we've established that purpose? So bottom line here, you get to decide what stays and what goes, and what you want to build your life on: positive thoughts or negative thoughts. Okay, and that's a big, wide, general spectrum. We understand there's many levels of every thought in between. So friend, you get to decide what stays and what goes. You get to decide the direction you want to be. Because people don't just wake up and one day you're like, okay, I'm going to go rob a bank today. No, they have been allowing these thoughts to creep in, that became in their mindset the solution to their problem, the solution to whatever question they were asking, probably like, how can I get more money? And for them, the answer was, I'm going to rob a bank, because they allowed those thoughts to live there. And you are not going to have that same solution come up in your life as a viable option for, like, example, how to make some money. You're not going to think, okay, I better just plan out where to go rob a bank. You're not going to do that, because that's not a part of your identity. That's not a part of who you are, because you're not living in those thoughts. This is how it works, because we all shape our lives dependent on what we are thinking. Our perspective is filtering in and creating the life that we want. And yet, so many of us are not aware of this. All I'm trying to do in these videos is call attention to it, to let you know what is happening so you can decide what your next step is. Friend, just a quick announcement to let you know if you are looking to do more of this work, take it to a deeper level. I created a training. It's about an hour long because I love pointed, short, tight trainings that deliver the message right where you need it. And this one is about your excused identity, the things you are thinking that are creating the excuses that are keeping you stuck, that are not letting you move forward. This is a great place to start to understand the way that you're thinking and how you can actually start to move forward towards that dream, towards that purpose. This is one of my favorite trainings, and it also comes with a workbook to help you dive in deeper and start to ask the questions that are going to get you thinking in a different way. That's the release the excuses. So we have a fix your thoughts challenge, which is how we're going to fix our thoughts on God. I have a manifestation challenge. All these are all what I call tiny offers, meaning they're inexpensive ways to go deeper so you can start to integrate the conversations that we're having here and actually put them into application to start to create real change in your life. To find out more, visit me over at lifechangingmanifestations.com or click the links in the description to get direct access to any one of these programs and more that I have available for you. All right, back to the message. So let's give you a 3-step framework to taking your thoughts captive, bringing them under your control, and creating them on purpose in the direction you want to go. So the first step is you've got to become aware of whatever thought that you are having. You've got to know what's going on up here, what's going on inside your subconscious. Everything that is coming out of my mouth as I'm speaking this video, these are my conscious thoughts because I've crafted out what it is I want to say. I've thought about it, and now I am saying these thoughts to you. I'm aware of them. Now, I get in my car later, I'm going to the chiropractor, and on my drive, it's possible that I could have more conscious thoughts, especially about what I'm observing as I'm driving around. But sometimes also as you're driving, you just kind of sink in and it just like a memory comes up or an idea comes up. And then it's like, woo, and you're just navigating this path in your mind. And some of it starts to come up from your subconscious because these are your memories coming to life. Your ideas are coming out of you. And because you're in a relaxed state, it's like some of these things just start to pop up. That's just one way that this happens. There's so many different ways. And sometimes my mind just might start to wander. And I'm all the way caught into a thought before I even realize it. And so many times that's what's happening for us is we are just randomly thinking things before we even realize what we've been thinking about. Just start to take notice of your thoughts and know that you are not attached to them. They're not permanent things that have to live in your life, even if they're things that you have believed your entire life. Friend, you are an adult, you are in your 40s, and you get to own for yourself what it is that you are going to think about, the direction you want your thoughts to go. Because we want to honor what the scripture says, that we can take our thoughts captive, which means we get to choose. And so if you get to choose what you're going to think, you also get to challenge what you are thinking. Just becoming aware of your thought is great. That is why it's the first step. But then I want you to challenge the thought. Is it beneficial for you to keep on thinking this thought? Does it serve you? Does it make you go towards the route in life that you want to go, on the path that you have chosen for yourself, which I guess first of all, you need to identify and know the path that you want to go. And I can help you with that if you need assistance. But as you're looking at the direction you want to build for your life, what thoughts do you need to hold on to? What thoughts do you need to possess? Because those are the thoughts that are going to take you wherever you're going to end up. And if you're not intentionally catching your thoughts, if you're not knowing what you're thinking about, if you're just letting your mind get lost in anything, then you see, you could lose sight of your goal of achieving your purpose. So challenge the thoughts that you have. The other reason I say to challenge your thoughts is because sometimes we are literally living out a thought that was placed into our mind and has been built into our subconscious, is a part of our program. It is how we are running our lives, and it was determined by somebody else. Maybe it was something that you kept hearing in the media. Maybe it was something you kept hearing from somebody who was pouring into your life, an adult, even in childhood, a teacher, an advisor. Somebody said something to you sometime, either repeatedly or even something that just like had a light bulb moment. It felt like it had an impact on you, and you have continued to think this, to believe this. I had a conversation with a professor in college I went to them and I was like, okay, based on everything that you just said in class today, I feel really concerned. And they're like, what's going on? And I said, I come from a line of very strong-willed women, and I am worried that as I grow up, I'm not going to be able to be a submissive wife. I'm not going to be able to honor God with my marriage because I'm feeling like I am very strong-willed. And I just walked away from that conversation feeling a little bit deflated, a little bit like judged in myself, that there was something broken about me that I had to shift to make better, to be this person. And what I was denying is that I can follow Christ, I can be a wife, and I can be honoring in my marriage, and I can still be a strong-willed woman. It's not one or the other. See, I was going to this place of thinking it's this or it's that, which, friend, that is a bad place to be in thinking, because it's an all or nothing way of thinking. And this is actually something we're going to talk about in next week's video. So don't miss this, because this is one of the thought traps that we can get stuck in that really hurts us. And then we're like, okay, I either a strong-willed woman and I don't have a good marriage and I can't follow God, or I follow God and I give up entirely who I've been designed to be. Do you see what I mean? It's not one or the other. I would still describe myself as a strong-willed woman, but I'm in a marriage and I love God. And I can abide by and be in God. And He made me. He gave me so much of this spirit that I would label strong-willed. And there's power in that. And I get to live in a time in history when being a voice and having an active presence as a woman, it matters. And we're allowed to do things at this stage in our lives that generations past have not had. So I know, friend, that there's a reason that I've been made this way, that I can embrace that and live into my faith and live and be in an honoring marriage and submit to Christ. Do you see all these things? It's not this or that. It can be so much in between. And so once again, I'm getting down a little bit on a tangent because I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about in the next video. But make sure you save space to come back and watch that next video, because we're going to talk about the all or nothing thinking that can be a trap for us. So coming back to this is step 2 in taking your thoughts captive, is challenge the way you've been thinking. And is it serving you? Is there something else that you need to look at from a different angle? Is this a thought that's going to move you towards the direction that you want to go with your life? Or is this a thought we need to release? And the third step I would give you, if you're just starting this process, is a bit of thought swapping. And because there's a lot of work that you can get into, especially if you hire yourself a life coach, as somebody, a therapist, a counselor, somebody to talk to, a professional who can help you to look at your thoughts. And there's a lot of time that you can unpack that thought. And depending on who you go to, some people are trained to help you to find, okay, let's find the root of this thought. And let's keep plucking at this and diving deeper into your childhood. And how did your childhood make you who you are today? And there's benefit in that. But I like to be able to say, okay, instead of just having to stay stuck dwelling on the past, how can I acknowledge the past that has been and still be able to move forward towards what is? And I want to keep building into. So a little bit of thought swapping can be really effective here, is that if I identify a thought that doesn't serve me and a thought that I don't want to do, I don't have to necessarily know where it came from. I don't have to find it in my childhood for when that got planted into my life and has now become a part of who I am. I can just say that is a part of who I've been. I'm grateful it got me to where I am today. And now I want to move forward thinking this instead. And I'm going to release that thought and I'm going to swap it out with something else that serves me more today. This is who I want to be. This is who I am. This is who I'm moving towards. And so I'm going to use a new thought to identify that. So for example, if going back to the example I gave you about the strong-willed woman, I want to own I am a strong-willed woman. And I am a strong-willed woman who loves God. I'm a strong-willed woman who lives my life to glorify God. And my voice, because I can be a strong-willed woman, is going to radiate out. I'm going to create messages that serve other women and help empower them to live out their best life. And I can live into that. I really just I get so lit up just even saying that right now and letting that sink in and letting that become a part of my identity. And it really is. And I live into that thought. But that took swapping out my thought. And I didn't have to know all the roots of where that original way of thinking came from, that being strong-willed meant there was something wrong with me. Instead, I can say, no, I can still be here, do all the things, and be a strong-willed woman. And so that was a thought swap that served me in the direction that I was building. And so, friend, find it for yourself. Find where you can make thought adjustments or thought swapping. It doesn't matter what you call it, but you get the principle here is that you're going to find a thought that better serves you and you feel like lit up. Yes, I can support that. And I'm going to go all in on that way of thinking. Okay. It's as simple as taking, can you see my llama? It's like a llama and a goat and a sheep and a donkey and a donkey. Those 4 animals. When I saw that painting, I was like, oh, I just have to have it. I like the colors, but I like the character, the funness of it, and just adds a little vibrancy into my office space. And when I saw that, I was like, yes. My son is like, that's stupid. I was like, that's your thought. I like it. And I think it's playful and it's fun. And it's just the right ambiance that I want for my space. And it's not too distracting to hang up and put behind me in video. All these things, these are all the thoughts that I had about it. He's like, don't get that. Why are you buying that? All his judgments and where he's coming from. But I hung it up. But anytime that no longer serves me, anytime that I'm like, ew, and I've changed my mind about it, I don't have to just keep it hanging there because once upon a time I really loved it. No, I get to decide that it no longer serves me. I don't like it anymore. And I can release it and I can hang up something else. And then my space around me starts to look like something else. You get this? This is the same thing you get to do with your thoughts. So going back to how we opened up the video, remember I gave you 3 different thoughts that were negative thoughts that could hold you back from being able to move forward in your life. But now I want to give you those same 3 thoughts and give them to you in a different way that we can take them captive and bring them under submission of Christ, okay? So that we can abide by that opening scripture. So instead of thinking I am not good enough, consider reframing it as God has already equipped me for this. And a verse that you can sink into with that is 2 Corinthians 3:5. Instead of something like, I don't know how I can do this, consider thought swapping this with, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, using Philippians 4:13 to empower you there. You can always take any scripture and speak it over yourself to empower you, to guide you, to direct your steps forward with confidence in God. Instead of, what if I fail? Or what are other people going to think of me? Try swapping this for, God's plan for me is good, especially if you know the direction that you're going with God. And that's Jeremiah 29:11. So use these verses because, friend, when you redirect your thoughts, you can redirect your life. This is how we create the pivot. The change that's going to happen in our lives is by changing out the way that we are thinking. Like God says, take our thoughts captive, bring them under submission to Christ, and move forward in the direction that God has for you. So, friend, are you already starting to identify where there are negative thoughts coming up for you that would be better off, adjusting, changing, or completely discarding? What thoughts do you need to start to take captive of? Is there a way that you can start to create this awareness around your thoughts to then challenge your thoughts and then be able to swap them out by taking them captive and bringing them under direction that God has for you in your life? I'm so excited to be able to go on this journey with you, keep encouraging you, and I can't wait to go into our 3rd video in this mini series because we're going to talk about the all or nothing way of thinking, the if-then statements, and the fallacy of our thoughts that keep us stuck. So join me as we break all that down. It's a great part of reprogramming how you are thinking so that you can start to change your thoughts and change your life.